Okay.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, today we're going to talk about making the most of your internship. So let's dive straight in. Super briefly, who am I? I started out in the world of finance. I was at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater Associates. On the side of my job, I was informally coaching for years, ended up doing some HR research at Aon Hewitt. I did a coaching training at NYU and then certified through the International Coach Federation. I did a tech MBA at NYU Stern, and I've done career coaching through a variety of organizations, Flatiron School, Columbia University, Project Activate, and I've been building my own company for about 4.5 years. And we really have a lot of digital tools to help you be very intentional with any and all career decision or efforts that you are pursuing. And happy to talk more about that. But that's my background in a nutshell. So we're going to talk about the before your internship, even though if you've already started, it's all still relevant. These are things you can do still in week 1 or week 2, making the most, of course, of your internship, talking a little bit about in-person versus remote, talking about some goal setting, onboarding, networking, and thriving during the internship itself, as well as a little bit around communication. So lots of different things here. And again, ask any and all questions that arise. So again, what to do before your internship. This is, again, you can do in week 1. Of course, you want to learn everything you can about that organization. I like to read the website in full. The same would be if you were interviewing, but now you're there. So you get to really try to be a sponge and absorb everything. Reflect on any past conversations or pursue additional networking. And we're going to talk a lot about that to understand the structure and the culture of the organization and see also what might arise just in the news itself about the organization, besides just for what's on their website. Of course, you want to learn about the role and the team, right? And so you really want to understand, what does this role actually require? And of course, you're going to be trained when you're there to do certain projects, but you can actually do a little bit of your own research and networking and even skill development outside of the internship to understand a little bit more about what that role really means outside of the organization, to see if you can bring that knowledge into the organization and really impress them, right? If they're giving you a project and you've done a little bit of your homework outside of that, you're just going to bring extra skills and knowledge. You don't have to show up as the expert. You are there to learn and, of course, contribute, but you can sort of explore what else is there to learn about the role outside of the organization itself. You want to learn about the industry, right? So what else can you understand about who maybe the competitors are, or who are their close companies that are similar or different from them in the industry. Sometimes there's subsectors. Who are the different players or stakeholders? Maybe they have partners, maybe they have vendors, maybe there are competitors. There's different players that you want to make sense of the sector. You want to also learn about yourself. So, we are going to try to talk a little bit today about the communication and project management of things, but really getting to know what has worked for you. Even if it was a way that you stayed organized during college, try to leverage, like, how did you project manage a project in school? How did you communicate with your professors? You want to try to bring the skills that you already have and notice the opportunities to hone those skills and improve and develop those skills moving forward. This is an opportunity to practice, to get better, to notice that you have, every single day, it's a new chance to say, every time you speak up to your manager, every time you're doing a new project, you have a chance to really figure out, how should I approach this? That doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. It's just an opportunity to notice how you go about things and ask for help if you're not sure. If you've never had to do project management, you can ask a peer or a manager to say, can you show me how you guys typically do this, right? Understanding their processes and then applying them, of course, to yourself. You want to understand your career goals and your direction. Of course, the internship is a moment where you can get to know the role and the team and the company and the industry, right? So this is a moment where you can ask yourself, is this type of work something I'd be interested in doing? But even independently of that internship, if you can do a little bit of research, a little bit of networking, and a little bit of self-reflection about the different types of roles, the different types of companies, the different types of industries, and really try to figure out what career path you actually want and get as specific as you can, that's going to help you to show up to the internship and know when to speak up, what projects to ask for. Sometimes the company is great at asking you what it is you want to work on and what it is you want to learn. And if you can really show up and, be targeted with what you're trying to get out of this, in terms of skills or projects or work or whatever, or exposure to certain things, that's really going to make your time super worthwhile. And I'm guessing my own bullets before I even read it, but as you can see here, knowing this will help drive your motivation to pursue the most relevant projects during the internship. I'll keep going, but if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to write in the chat. So making the most out of your internship. So of course, first and foremost, you really want to create impact with the work that you are given. You want to meet expectations and you want to exceed expectations. So you really want to understand what are their expectations or goals for you to achieve by the end of the internship. Then when it comes to each project, you want to understand the expectations for each project. Now, I say here to get these in writing. Sometimes you might ask for that in writing and it may not happen, but at the very least, if you can ask for that, you can even write it down yourself. And then you could put that on a Google Doc, send it to a manager and say, is this right? Did I capture everything? Because the more you can get in writing, the better. And then, by the way, that's just a tool in general. The more transparent documentation, that's why I love Google Docs, Google Sheets, the more transparent you can be, the more that people can literally get on the same page. And then you avoid a lot of miscommunication. That could be in the form of an email follow-up, a Google Doc, an expectations, project management, you name it. Documentation is always a helpful tool. And of course, you want to get shareable stories and achievements for your resume and future interviews. So every time you're doing a project, you really want to think to yourself, how can I really be strategic? How can I understand the goal? How can I efficiently, effectively achieve, whether it's solving a problem or achieving the project? That way you can really talk about what it is you did in such a short period of time. It's not always easy to do, but try to help your manager know what's on your plate, what you're working on, and get help to try to have some level of outcomes with the things you are working on. You also want to, of course, learn skills that will simply help you thrive in general, right? And so that means communicating clearly, both in writing as well as when you speak. I know this might sound really kind of obvious, but this is one of those few initial moments where you're in a professional setting. And to speak clearly and professionally, it actually does take a little bit of practice. So use each opportunity as a moment to think about how you plan what it is you want to say. It's okay to take a piece of paper and plan it out before you write that email or before you walk up to your manager, right? So really try to recognize that this is a bit of a new way that you might be operating that you may never have actually done before. It doesn't mean you have to speak perfectly. It does mean try to be really thoughtful with how you approach any and all situations or any and all people. Gathering expectations, tracking progress against it, ask for feedback, and meet milestones. This second bullet here, that's your job, right? You want to really be able to just simply achieve the goals that you are given. But you're also given an opportunity to learn your own, I call it a personal operating system for various things, for project management, but also how and when to ask questions. A good rule of thumb is check your notes. And then what it should actually say is not just your notes, but company notes, company procedures, company documents. Check Google, ask a peer, and then maybe you speak up and ask. And by the way, that's a great thing, because then when you ask your question, you can say, here's what I've done. Here's what I think the answer is. Here's what I'm not sure of. Do you mind helping me along with this? So you want to show that you're being resourceful and taking initiative, but you never want to assume. I always want you to err on the side of caution. So you don't need to act if you're not sure. It's a matter of how do you gather some information, and then you share what it is you've done. You share what you think you might want to do or need to do, and you get feedback accordingly. And as well as you're going to learn your own personal operating systems for project management, tracking goals, organization, tracking emails, any and all to-dos, that you're going to be working on need to be organized. So sometimes that's a natural strength, sometimes that's not so much, but really honing the organizational system is going to set you up for success so that you can focus on the actual work itself. Of course, making the most of your internship, we're going to talk about your career path, right? I like to say you peek across the fences. It's okay to learn about other teams, other roles, who else is doing what at that company, build relationships, understand how the teams interconnect. And if you're really interested in a certain team, even if they're the ones not your current team, you absolutely can set up one-on-one meetings to understand what it is they do, how they do it. And for all you know, you might want to come back to them next summer or next year on a different team, right? So it's okay to really understand all of those components and actively reflect. What are you learning? What projects seem most interesting? What projects seem aligned with your work style, right? So keep reflecting on what seems aligned, what seems natural for you, what you enjoy doing. That's an active reflection. I would do that daily, or at least weekly. Cool. Again, I'm paying attention to the chat. Let me know if any questions. I will keep going. So in-person versus virtual or remote internships. So the systems to interact, right? When you're in person, you're going to have meetings, and you're also just going to have sitting there in the office. You're also going to have chat, email, phone, video, as well as shared digital tools. Obviously, remote, you're going to be missing out on the in-person meetings. You're going to have virtual meetings. But the key thing is there isn't going to be that at the desk, I can overhear certain things, or I could ask you something off the cuff because you're sitting next to me. And so it's not bad per se. It just means let's be aware of how to work around that, right? So building rapport. This is going to occur naturally if you're in person. And by the way, if you have the choice, I would definitely go in person. If you can, if you feel comfortable, I really would encourage you to do that. So this will occur naturally. When you're sitting there for a bunch of hours every day, you're naturally going to bond and become friends and talk about personal things, and you're going to build relationships. Remote, basically you're going to have to sort of set up a one-on-one meeting, if you haven't already, with each person on the team. That first time that you have a one-on-one meeting, you absolutely can talk about where are you from, what's your background, get to know them personally, and then get to know what it is they do as part of the team. And then you could get to know their tips and things like that. But kick off that relationship, especially if you're remote. You could be creative, set up a virtual coffee chat, right? Like allow them to take a break in their day by maybe saying, I'm going to take a walk, take a virtual walk, and I'll call you on the phone. Like allow them to see that this would be a coffee chat, if it would have been in person. Asking questions throughout the day. In person, it's a bit easier. You can turn to the person next to you. You can walk up to somebody. You can group your questions. So say you have a bunch of questions, you can have a list of a few of them and say, after a few hours, you walk up to whoever it is, your peer or manager, and say, I've got a bunch of questions. Do you have 5 minutes so I can ask you? When you're remote, don't forget to ask questions, right? Like in some ways it's easier because you're on chat, but in some ways it's harder because you're like, I just am sitting here guessing what I'm supposed to be doing. Just because you're not naturally having the person next to me doesn't mean to, not be proactive with what it is you need to know. You could set up a daily 15-minute check-in, or you could send a daily email with your list of questions. Be proactive, be creative, and try to get what help you do need. The more proactive you are, the better. And by the way, like I mentioned here, ask your manager where and when the best way is to ask your questions. Maybe if you have Slack or another chat forum, you might not want to ask questions, 24/7. Maybe they tell you to do that. Maybe they say, send me an email once a day with all your questions. Or maybe they say, let's have a meeting once a day. Whatever it might be, check in on the best way to still get the help you need in this virtual format. Absorbing information. So when you're sitting next to people, you are going to just simply hear things. You're going to hear other people's calls and meetings. I know this might sound silly, but that's a lot of the way that we used to learn things back in the day. So, when you're remote, you can ask, this isn't even listed here, but you absolutely can ask to shadow meetings, even if it's virtually. Have them add you to meetings if you're allowed to listen, just for the sake of understanding what's going on. Of course, you're going to research deeply, be resourceful for what documentation exists, create documentation that doesn't exist, and of course, proactively set up meetings and ask to shadow meetings as well. So getting help, again, in person, you can really leverage all of these same different resources. It's just a matter of kind of when, how, and where that might vary. But just don't forget to still get the help you need, even if you're virtual. You want to learn just as much as you would in person. All right, forging forward here. So grab a piece of paper. You can type out if you wanted to. I'm going to prompt you through some of these things, but I really want you to start to actively write down your own personal goals. They're going to be giving you lots of projects, but what you want out of this is really going to help you make the most of it for yourself, right? So you could type or you can handwrite. I prefer handwriting. But my first question is, what do you want to learn? So consider the skills, the projects, the exposure you want to gain, whether it's the team, the company, the industry. What are the learnings you want to take away from this internship? And I'm going to give you a few seconds for each one. So I would actively start writing this out, so that way you can get out of it what it is you want. And the key to that is figuring out what you actually want out of it. It's going to make it a lot easier, because you're going to notice that there's going to be ad hoc moments where your manager is going to say, what else do you want to work on? We're going to proactively think about that today, right? So you want to be ready for those types of conversations. So I'll keep prompting you through. I would just keep jotting down some keywords that come to your mind, and you can always come back to this. What results do you want to achieve by the end of the internship? So actual metrics, outcomes, how can you prove that you had impact in this internship? What is it you want to say at the end that you actually did? Give you a few seconds on each one. And what skills do you want to hone or improve? Remember, we're thinking about hard skills, but we're also thinking about soft skills. If you know that organization, project management, communication, whatever it may be, is something you're not as natural at, do you want to work on that? Or is it some hard skills you want to learn, a certain software tool or process or function? What is it you really want to develop your skill in to walk away saying, I'm actually better at this thing? And how many relationships do you want to build? I would actually give it a number. You could say, like, I want to network with 5 people. I want to network with 10 people. It's whatever number you choose. I mean, I wouldn't go crazy with it. And I would, of course, get your manager's support. If you wanted to do networking across the company, let your manager in on that and let your manager help you with that. But I would give yourself a number. How many people do you want to meet? And by the way, relationships can vary. You might have a mentor that you meet with once a week, and you might have somebody that you just meet once. But I would give a number with how many people you want to meet, and specifically who, which roles or which teams, which departments would you like to at least have one meeting with in order to understand what they do, how they do it. And what personally do you want out of this internship? Maybe you just want some career clarity. Maybe you want to feel like you're a professional. Maybe you want to boost your confidence. Maybe you want to be able to speak up. Maybe you want to, be creative and, come up with some creative project. Could be any number of things, but personally, it's okay to ask yourself, like, just besides for the obvious professional nature of it, why are you doing this? And what do you want out of it? Is it understanding what type of work environment you want to be in? Getting a sense of what it is you want out of your career? Personal goals are okay as well. And if there's any goals we haven't yet mentioned, feel free to just keep going with this list. You can have as many goals as you want. Of course, you want to be, reasonable, but it's okay to say, what do I want out of this? What is tangible for us being an undergrad intern? Yes, so I see this question. Tammy, this is a really good question. I think it depends on the project, right? So any project you're given, it's always a good idea to ask for like what timeline they expect, and what they expect as it relates to the metrics. So every single role or company is going to look different depending on what the work is. But I would actually ask your manager that question of like, what metrics, talk about, if we go back here in the slides for a little bit, expectations. In order to understand expectations, you really got to get specific. Is what do they expect to see out of this project? When do they expect to see it? Now, the how you go about that project, that's probably up for discussion. But what they want to see out of it, whether you're solving a problem, building a process, or just achieving some growth or whatever it may be, I would definitely ask the exact metrics they hope to see. And so the reason I turn it back around, Tammy, is because your manager is going to understand what is reasonable based on the number of hours, per week that you have, your current skill set, and how difficult that project is, how much support you have, how new or complex it is, or how simple it is. So there's a lot of factors. But getting that out of your conversation, that is literally how you would understand the expectations. And then once you understand the expectations, maybe you exceed that goal, right? So then on your resume, all of a sudden you say, I had to do 20 social media posts and I ended up doing 40, or I had to increase engagement by 10% and I increased engagement by 30%. So whatever the nature of the goal is of that project, you want to understand the expectations being given to you. Your manager will know what's reasonable given what that project really looks like. And let me know if that makes sense, and let me know if you guys have any other questions. Okay, so networking 101. Number one is all the different types of connections you can have. Of course, there's peers. And by the way, I would not sleep on, even your peers might be helpful for you in a future job search. So I would be professional with everyone around you in that organization. Your managers, and especially senior leaders, always good to get on the good side of everyone around you. And of course, as we mentioned, there's other teams, other departments, vendors, external partners, stakeholders, and maybe there's people in other companies in similar roles. That could be interesting to network, as well as unpredicted connections. If there's any events you're a part of through your internship, you never know who you may meet, as well as clients. So it depends on the company, but really I would be open-minded about all the types of people that you're interacting with, or exposed to. That's networking. Networking is literally almost every single person that you're interacting with. Obviously, you have a personal network and you have a professional network, but be open-minded. Even your personal network could make introductions for you. So your networking is literally the act of utilizing the people in your life, right? And figuring out how you can learn from those people and how you can grow your network, right? So what can you do in an informational meeting? So learn about your role and your team, right? You want to connect the dots, right? You really want to learn as much as you can about what that person does, what their team does, and how the teams interact. Get specific. Be really prepared with what questions you ask and the phrasing of how you ask it to get the information you really need. You can ask about example projects. You can ask about their career path. You can ask about the skills that are required to break into a certain path. You can ask about where this role may lead in the future. Of course, building mentor relationships. Maybe 1 out of 20 networking relationships is going to be awesome, and it's going to be someone who you really want to stay in touch with, and maybe you meet with them once a quarter. And of course, you can just simply get tips about how to thrive in that company and in your career in general. So informational networking meetings can really be beneficial. How are you going to reach out to somebody? In an email, you're going to be brief, specific, clear, and authentic. You always want to talk about what is it you would want to learn from them during that meeting. Show them that you're prepared to use their time wisely. And it's okay to ask, I mentioned 20, 30 minutes. You can even ask for 15, 20 minutes. And usually they'll give you 30 minutes. So I kind of talked a little bit about this element, which is the topics. your role, projects, functions, skills, strategies, challenges, opportunities, how different teams interact, their path, how people break in, the industry, as well as any other questions you actually have. Your genuine questions, given what you've learned so far, given what else you want to know. Those are the best kinds of questions. So deepen your understanding beyond what you already know. And they're going to be impressed with these questions that you come up with. And if you're not already given a mentor, you can actually ask for one. And that's a great person to not just learn about the hard skills, but also to, just get tips around. There's always situations that arise that you may not know how to navigate. No one's expecting you to be perfect. And by the way, your colleagues are not perfect. So mentors are really helpful to say, how should I react to this? How should I respond to this? How should I do this better the next time, right? That's a really good relationship that you can have. I'm going to go back super quickly, and I would love to hear in the chat if there's any specific goals you guys want to share with me or with each other about specific things you actually would love to gain or glean out of your internships. So we're going to take a minute just to see what bubbles up for you. Anyone willing to share? And if not, we can spend another minute or two and write and reflect, but would love to hear what you guys want to get out of this. Lesson planning skills, behavior management skills. Love that. Thank you. Networking skills. Awesome. Anything else? Building yourself a reputation. Love that. See what life of a speech therapist really looks like. I love that, Miriam. Yep. You really do want to see what it looks like and see if it's possible for you to write something less creative. Interesting. Oh, I see. Sorry, Shayna and Miriam. Thank you. Yep. I love this. You're experimenting with yourself. You're stretching your mind. You're stretching your capabilities. Understanding scientific method and the culture. Amazing. Yep. If you actually enjoy doing this as a career, amazing. Amen. Kayla, that is what I want to hear. That's a great thing. But remember, in the internship, you might get an experience just as that one role or team or function, but don't forget, you can leverage your manager and your peers and whoever you're working with to also understand their vantage point. So if you're not sure that that role specifically is the right role for you, understand what are other similar but different roles so that you can continue learning about the space that you're in. You have this one internship and it's in this one role in this one team, but how can you peek over the fences? Because what are the odds that, I want you to put your all into your internship, but I also want you to know that you might come out of this saying, you know what? The role that sits next to me or the team that sits over there actually feels like the most interesting one. And I would love to go try that one next time. So it's okay to come out of this and have a broader viewpoint of all the other adjacent, similar things, right? How do those roles vary? How do they differ? What is the difference, right? What's the style of the work? How do they vary? And what's better or worse for you and why? So you can get a lot out of this with career exploration, not just about the current role, but also all the other similar things that you can learn with your vantage point. Okay, so onboarding. Onboarding is interesting because you may have been given an onboarding plan. You may not have been given an onboarding plan. Oftentimes, companies are really not amazing at onboarding. So I like to say that it's sort of, even though it's technically their responsibility to onboard you and set you up for success, I would actually treat it like your own responsibility to set yourself up for success, meaning ask for what you need, ask for the training documents, ask to meet with whoever you need to meet with. The first week or two is so important to absorb as much as you can. That way, when you dive into the project work, you have such a greater understanding of what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. So setting up your project management system, you want to stay organized so you know what to do, when to do it. Keep a system to keep your unread emails organized. Create an onboarding plan, even if you're not given one. And by the way, even if you are given an onboarding plan, I would ask for a downloadable version of that document and edit it and own it and make it your own, right? So really take ownership of that. Document all notes. Every meeting, you should be taking notes. Meet with each person on your team one-on-one, as we mentioned. Set up a regular meeting cadence with your manager. Ask how, when, and where they want to receive updates and questions from you. Like I mentioned, using shared documents as a powerful tool. I love Google Docs. Keeping a list of all your questions and asking them regularly, proactively, at least once a day. Document your questions and share them. And keep a list of your ideas, right? So at least try to just learn for the first week or 2 or 3. But once you feel like you have the lay of the land, start to bring up your ideas. Pose your idea. Pose it as a question. You say, have you ever thought about this? Because they may have tried it. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe they never tried it before. Your ideas as fresh eyes are way more powerful than you think. Any questions on this? Okay. This is an example template. You can of course make this your own, but I would again document and visualize the plan. What are you going to learn each week? Who are you going to meet? What documents are you going to read or train on? What are you going to do research on your own? What actual work and projects will you be doing? What systems do you need access to? You can totally edit this however you may need, but these are some of the basics that you might want to keep track of over the course of the internship. And again, if you weren't given something like this, you can create something like this. Putting this in front of your manager is going to impress them. It's going to make their life so much easier to help you fill in the gaps, to say, oh, you know what, you should meet this person, or you should read this, or you should learn this, right? Oftentimes they don't have a ton of time to put this stuff together. So if you put your own stuff together and pose it, they're going to fill in the gaps. Okay. All right. So during the internship, you are both going to give and contribute value, but also benefit by learning skills, building your network, building connections, and gaining stronger career clarity. So we've touched on a lot of these things. I want to just touch on quickly professionalism. Professionalism is an interesting topic. Again, I want you to recognize what is new and different about this experience, right? Hopefully in college, when you speak with a professor, you're speaking professionally, but there may not have been many other instances in your life that you've had to act professional, right? And so I'm here to sort of define it a little and just let you know that you can and should be yourself. You should show up as yourself, your way of thinking. They want to get your strong brains and your dynamic thinking and your way of asking questions, and they want to get your fresh eyes. All professionalism really means is that you're not going to be inappropriate. And so understanding the lines where you cannot cross. You're not going to curse. You're not going to talk about very personal things. You're not going to really talk about, religious things, political things, things like that. You guys use your good, reasonable judgment. You are turning into adults now. So that's really all it means, is that try to not cross the barrier of things that may feel somewhat uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you can't be yourself. It just means that you really don't want to cause any issue where it isn't already exists. You want to focus on the work. Now, there's going to be moments where people take breaks. There's going to be moments where you get along and you build relationships, and you do build personal relationships. I have best friends from different work experiences, and that's okay. It just means the way you speak, the way you ask questions, what information you share, how you say it. It's got a little bit more thought behind it than if you were just speaking to a friend. If you're speaking to a friend, you probably don't have to think about what you say and how you say it, right? That's why they're your best friend. This is just adding a little bit of thoughtfulness to how you phrase things, what you say, when you say it, where you say it. You're literally just putting that thoughtfulness behind it. Project management, we talked a little bit about this, but in essence, staying organized. Try to use tools to your advantage. Understand how they do project management already and try to use the tools they give you, or build out your own tools. I've used a lot of, Google Sheets. I use a tool called Basecamp. There's a million types of tools. Trello, Asana, Monday. I don't want you to pay for any of these things. If there's ever free versions, of course, use it. But again, see what it is they're using. there's oftentimes organizations have project management tools so that you know what to do, when to do it, the priority, the status, being able to tag someone, ask questions. Those tools are really a good mechanism to sort of teach you how you can and should actually be operating and managing projects. Communication, I mean, there's so much we can talk about, obviously, with that. We talked about speaking professionally. I think with communication, like I mentioned, it's a matter of what you say, how you say it, where you say it, when you say it. Again, doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Just means you got to be a little thoughtful to figure out what's the best format. Should I send a chat? Should I send an email? Or do I think I really need to have a meeting, in which case I should request 5 or 10 minutes of their time on Zoom, right? So the format, what you say, how you say it, when you say it, where you say it, okay? Expectation setting and setting goals. We talked a little bit about this, but the key here is, do you understand your expectations in the role in general, as well as per project? And that simply means getting extremely specific. If you guys have ever worked on this, SMART goals, right? It's really putting a time around it. It's being extremely explicit about what you need to achieve and when you need to achieve it. Soliciting feedback. So if you understand the expectations for your role or for the project, if you're not already receiving feedback, you can actually say at least once a week, how am I doing? Is there anything I should work on? Is there any feedback you have for me? Is there anything I can do better? Be proactive and ask that, because they'll tell you. Not every culture is good about proactively necessarily sharing that, but most people will answer if you ask it. So you absolutely should show them that you're trying to grow, you're trying to learn, you're trying to improve. We talked about networking.
Rachel, I
Yes.
see a question on here saying, it feels like a paradise. How can I build relationships if I keep everything purely surface level?
Yes, so that's a really good question. First of all, I wouldn't necessarily keep anything surface level, right? So when it comes to business, you're going to have to get deep. You're going to have to ask for strategies and challenges and goals. I wouldn't call that surface level. As it relates to your business conversation, you're going to have to be really dynamic with how deep you get with what it is you're talking about, the projects, the work, the opportunities, things are going to get nitty gritty. And I would call that deep thinking. In terms of personal relationships, that really depends. Meaning if you're in person, it's going to happen naturally. You're going to have breaks. You're going to go get lunch. You're going to, go get coffee. You're going to have inherent moments where you just have to take breaks together. If you're working remotely, I would try to actively set up time. So at the very least, meet each person one-on-one and ask them, where are you from? Where do you live? Tell me about would love to learn about you as a person. That's okay to say when you're first meeting someone. So you do want to understand their personal situation. And then of course you can understand the work. You can also understand their tips and their guidance. Sometimes just getting tips around how to work well, that's actually building a personal relationship, because you're building trust in the sense that they're there to help you. They're there to mentor you. They're there to give you some advice. That's actually very personal, to give you some career advice. The other thing you can do is, like, midway or towards the end of your internship, there's a few things you can do. Either set up some more one-on-ones with the people you really want to build a relationship with, and you can actually say to them, I'd love to just have a coffee chat, like non-work related, to get to know you, your career path, and just sort of make sure we're building that relationship for the future. You got to always have a goal with what it is you're doing with that meeting, but it's okay to say, I'd love to simply build a relationship with you as a mentor, glean some of your support, and then see where that meeting goes. It's okay to sort of go in relatively open-ended without a very specific agenda, as long as you're putting some thought into when you ask them for their time. The other thing is, like, if you have a team, you could be proactive in like setting up a team bonding exercise. I mean, everyone has different opinions on things like that, icebreaker type things, but I would, volunteer to do things like that. If it, as much as it can feel like some people may not love activities like that, in the end of the day, I think most managers really see that it's important to build the relationships on the team, not just for you yourself to build relationships, but as it relates to how you all work together. Personal relationships are going to help you understand. If you understand how a person operates, how they communicate, and you have a strong personal relationship, you're actually going to work better together. So volunteering activities like that and maybe running an activity like that for your team is actually going to be really a positive thing. So Eli, the answer is you don't have to stay surface level. You absolutely can and should be yourself. You can have your humor. You can let them know, you know, the hobbies that you have, and you listen to this kind of music and you go to this kind of comedy show and you play this instrument, whatever it may be. You absolutely can show up with your uniqueness. All it means is there are certain topics that you have to understand where the line is. Certain things about your personal, maybe religion, I wouldn't really volunteer information necessarily unless they do. Politics, again, same thing. Things that just feel. Now, again, I'm going to say another way. If you build trust with somebody, there are many times where work relationships grow into becoming best friends. Like, that is the truth. In which case, you will end up sharing a lot of the deep things about you. When you are new to a company, just don't be the first to volunteer those things. If a manager starts talking about something, you can volunteer information, but you still want to be somewhat careful necessarily. So it's just starting to understand the line of what might be sensitive, to be careful to necessarily talk about. If you never know how somebody may feel about a certain political topic. So you just want to be careful and start to understand things that maybe aren't necessarily the best to talk about until someone else may bring that up. You are going to build trust. You are going to build very close relationships. You just don't want to be like the first person sort of shouting all these sensitive things, right? I hope that answers your question. Yes, Eli, don't overshare. But it's not just about oversharing. I personally would say it's more about understanding the certain topics to not bring up, or at least to just not bring up first. So try, if you're not sure about this, try to work on this with a peer or a mentor, or Karen or whoever. What are the example topics to get clear for your own being around what's sort of below the line, what's above the line, what would I maybe not just introduce? You know, it doesn't mean you can't be yourself, right? The best experiences are when you can show up as yourself. And I've had work experiences where I've been in a culture that is a fit, and I've been in a culture that's not as much a fit. And it's such a wonderful thing when you can be yourself and you get close with everyone, and it's fun and it's the best. But it is a professional work setting, and you don't know how people will react to certain sensitive things. So I'm giving you some examples, but if you need to, work with a mentor or a peer to get really clear on like, what do you think those things would be that I might not bring up? If you need to like go so far as to write it all down, you can do that. I'm not saying don't bring your whole self. I'm just saying it's not worth it for the potential sensitivity that may come with how people react for certain topics. You can still be yourself, right? I hope I'm explaining this clearly. Okay. I know we have just a few minutes, so I want to do this actually really clearly. And by the way, I'm not even going to go through this, but just know I'm going to send you guys our website so you can always stay in touch with me. But for the last few minutes, let's do some breakouts, and then I'll actually I'll walk you through the prompt. But essentially, your manager would give you a prompt, a project, right? They make clear what your goals are. They don't mention when it's due, and they don't mention how to approach it. What should you do? Hints are, how are you going to organize yourself physically, digitally? How are you going to visualize the plan? What can you do to learn before you ask something? What questions do you need to ask? How often and where will you provide updates? So I know we just have a few minutes, but Karen, if you want to kick off those breakouts, I will send this in the chat as well. Anyone want to share some thoughts that they came up with in their group?
So in my group, we kind of came up with like 2 different ways of doing it. Some of us were saying how we would just like take the goals we got and like write it out and like make a Google Doc and like try to figure out what you can on your own, and then compile questions and bring it to your boss. And then the other half was saying how like they also like they kind of would just go straight and ask questions because they need to know like what to do to take the next steps.
Yeah. It's an interesting challenge, like how much to do on your own, when to ask. I think usually a good rule of thumb is take the information you were given, try to be a little resourceful with what you can find at the company, whether it's documentation, resources, whatever you can do. But it is a balance of, you don't want to spend a whole day in silence, when you are going to have to speak up at some point with some thoughts, some questions, and maybe some proposed ideas or next steps. So it depends on the project, how long you might wait to speak up. But I think it's more so conceptually trying to remember, again, your own personal operating system. You get in an email, you read it thoroughly, you might make your own notes document, you might start to parse it out, organize your thoughts, organize your questions, organize the notes that you already could find elsewhere. And then you decide, okay, I think I've done what I can do here. It would be helpful to, ask. It is a balance because you don't want to overextend and waste time guessing, doing things where, it depends on the nature. I gave you a very broad prompt, but if they really didn't give you enough information, of course, you're going to need to speak up sooner than later. But if you feel like you can be resourceful, see what you can find. The bottom line is thinking through what you can do so that whenever you reply, you've put as much thought and resourcefulness and initiative into it as you can, but don't feel like you need to go overboard. There are certain things you're just simply going to have to ask. But at the very least, preparing your questions is such a good help, because then say you want to have a meeting and say, you know what, perfect, would love to do this project. When do you need to get this by? Do you have a preference for where I project manage this? Do you have any resources I can review to get started on this? Do you have any suggested ideas for how to approach it? Or would you like me to suggest the approach, or whatever it may be? Those initial questions can never hurt you. And then it's, as you start to project manage, it's a similar balance of, continuing with the next steps. You get some more information, you try a little bit on your own, you're going to get feedback, and it becomes a back and forth. But you just always want to remember to be thoughtful, resourceful, and organized with whatever next step you're pursuing in the project, whether it's the first email you get or, all the way through. Anyone have any other thoughts they wanted to share?
In my group, we also discussed, like, if you're getting a new project for the first time and you've never heard of it before, or you have no idea what they're talking about, then just ask straight up, just immediately, hi, what is this exactly? And like, what do you need me to do, and how should I be doing it?
Totally. And just remember, like, if you genuinely have no context whatsoever, I really like Rebecca's point about see what you can find. At least come up with like your questions, which is, can you share with me the goal of this? Can you share with me the problem? Can you share with me the current process of how this works? Can you share with me the timeline? Is there any resources I can read? And so even if you had to reply and say, I really have no context, still think of some helpful next questions and figure out, would it be easier to email those questions, or do you really need a meeting for someone to explain this thing to you and train you on this thing? And that's okay. So just remember, like, in your email back or wherever you respond, do you need time? Do you need a meeting? Do you need a training? Do you need a conversation? Or is it something we can do in writing? But yes, these are all really, really, really good ideas and next steps. So yeah, that's kind of everything I have today. Karen, let me know if you have thoughts as we wrap up here.
Yeah, no, you know what? I don't know if I can add anything. You've covered so many practical. I just think the practical advice that you've given is really so important. The idea of asking questions, because I think sometimes people are afraid to ask questions. So I think that's really important. And the idea of actually being resourceful, thinking about what you can figure out on your own, and then coming up with a list and staying in touch with people, and also the whole idea of onboarding and what to do at the beginning. I just think those are really good pointers for people to take, rather than waiting for them to do something that they may or may not do. Take the initiative and decide what you want to learn and what you feel like you need, and ask for those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah, no, so many good pointers. Rachel, you're amazing as always. Thank you so much. This is amazing. You know what? Can we get a quick picture with everyone?
Sure.
But I only want to do it if people can turn on their cameras. Because I don't want to get a picture with so if a couple more people can turn on their cameras, then that would be great. And we'll, yeah, even if people are outside, that's fine. Yeah, and if I don't know if I think, I'm not even going to ask if there are any more questions, because Rachel, you're sort of at the end of your point here. If there are any other questions, I'm sure they'll come up, and you guys just let me know and we can be in touch with Rachel.
Yeah, and I'm going to send our website. I just published a lot of free blogs and videos, so feel free to check that out. And if you do have follow-up questions, we are going to have some more sessions, which is great. So Karen, feel free to gather questions. I'm happy to create content around your questions and send that over to you, whether it's a video or a blog just for your questions, or in future sessions, feel free to track that Q&A, and we can always hit those at some point or time. I'm always happy to answer any other future questions.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, let's get just a quick let's see, print screen. Okay, quick photo, everyone, smile. Okay, oh wait, let me do this again because a couple people just appeared. Okay. Okay, thanks everyone. I think that's good.
All right, I'm gonna run, but
Okay.
guys, stay in touch. I'm always here, always happy to help, and you'll do great. Be confident, enjoy it, be yourself, and you'll all hopefully have wonderful experiences in your internships.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel. You're terrific, and we're gonna see Rachel again later in the summer.
Cool.
Okay, thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that. Rachel, she gave a lot of really good tips. So I really hope you use those. And the idea of thinking, and I'm glad, I was really happy to hear about some of you and the goals that you came up with, because if you know what you want, you know what you want to learn, you're going to be able to take more advantage of your time at your internships. So Rachel went a little bit over. We have more stuff to cover. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time, and I'm going to try to go through this quickly. Michael just came on. Hi, Michael.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. And
if people can turn on their screens, that's okay. If you can, I'd appreciate it. Okay, a couple things. First of all, I want to go through some internship administration things, but before that, just remember that at the end of each semester, I need certain documents to verify your eligibility for the next upcoming semester. So please send me your final transcripts, and that should show your GPA. If you're still waiting for coursework, just for courses, for grades, you can wait. But when everything's finalized, I need that. And it should show your finalized GPA and also your full-time enrollment for the fall. So if you have stuff that's still being worked out, you can wait, but as soon as it's worked out, send that out. And also we're going to be sending out the financial assessment form, so that you should submit that to your financial aid office so that we can get information about your eligibility for the fall award. So that's really, really important. So make sure you do that when we send that out to you. And if anybody has not yet applied for 22-23 financial aid, make sure you do that ASAP, because that's the way we get the information for eligibility for next year. Either I'll be sending out the request for that stuff or Nora will, we'll let you know. Okay, internships. Everyone knows the internships should be 7 hours a day, 35 hours a week for 8 weeks. We sent out the timesheets to those, to a lot of you. Do people have questions about the timesheets? Can we quickly go over that?
Yeah, I have a question about where we put our names. That was really confusing.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen for a second. Let's see. Okay, so this is the timesheet. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay. It looks complicated. It's pretty easy. It's not so complicated. Okay, so this is the first. Like each tab is a pay period. Okay, so here's a tab for June 1 to June 15th. Put your name here where the yellow is. Okay, so on each tab it just goes to the same place. It's not that important because we know your name is at the top of the sheet, so it's named for you. So if you forget to put your name, it's not a catastrophe. But what's important is at the end of each week, or really every day, what you should do is at the bottom, you should put your name here, right here, where it says intern name. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to sign in and out. Okay, you're going to sign out for lunch and then back in for lunch. Because if you're working more than 6 hours a day, technically, legally, you're supposed to be taking a break. So you should reflect it on your timesheet. So, and you need to put AM and PM in there in order for it to calculate correctly, right? So it'll be like this. So 9 AM, you're out for lunch at 12 PM, you're back in for lunch at 1, and then you leave at 5. And that it just gives you your 7 hours. You don't have to calculate it. It's, it's pretty easy. Does everyone understand that? Is that clear? Yes, no, questions? What if I work 8 hours with a 1 hour lunch? That's fine, that's perfect. That's right, exactly. That's a 7 hour day. Okay.
So Karen,
What?
I'm not sure if you noted this, but just so people have had questions about this already. The lunch is unpaid, so that's why it's subtracted from those total hours at the end of the day.
Right. It's a 7 hour day, so it's 9 to 5 with an hour lunch, or it doesn't have to be exactly that, but that's the basic idea. Okay. So you get a break in the middle of the day. Okay, is that clear? Okay, now here's the other thing that's a little confusing is we typically ask people to have your supervisors sign off on this. Your supervisor should be signing it here, okay, under where it says supervisor name. And usually you should really ask them to sign off on this every Friday, but we are paid on a bi-weekly schedule. We get paid on the 15th and the 31st of the month. So these tabs are set up according to those pay periods. So there may be times when you have your supervisor sign off on everything on a Friday, but then, for example, this 6/1 to 15 pay period ends on the 15th, which is a Wednesday. So you should get your supervisor to just sign off on a Wednesday. It's very easy. It's just a Google Sheet and it's shared with everyone. So it shouldn't be a problem, but there are going to be certain times where you're going to have to get them to sign off on everything midweek. Okay. Is that clear?
Karen, I just have a question.
What?
So everything's online, so it's fine that it's like an electronic signature. It doesn't need to be like printed out and sent in.
It doesn't. I mean, look, we can see who signed it. You know what I mean? Like we can see that your supervisor went in there and made the change. So there was no way for us to, get you all to sign. It would have been way too complicated.
Okay.
So this is what we're doing. Okay. And we can verify that it's them. It's no, it's fine. Okay. Is that clear? Awesome. Okay. Great.
I have one question.
What?
Basically, hold on.
And this is all shared with their supervisor. So all they have to do is go in and add their names. What, Ellie? Oh, okay. Should I stop sharing this? Is it okay if I fill in hours at the end of the week? Yeah, you can do it at the end of the week unless it's the beginning of a pay period. It's just easier if you do it during the week because you might forget. If your hours are the same exact every day and you want to do it at the end of the week, that's fine. It's fine. Okay, great. And that is so you get paid. So, we want to make sure you get paid. So, the way we do that is we have to keep track of your hours. Okay, let's see, what's next? Okay, as I said, you're going to be paid twice a month. It's $15 an hour. It should total $4,200 if for the full 280 hours. And everyone, I think you're all in pretty good shape. A lot of you are in good shape with the HR paperwork, but if you haven't finished that up, you need to finish that up because that is how you get paid. So we can't get you into our payroll system until we have all of that paperwork complete. So be in touch with you, Zeza. I know she's met with a lot of you and get that finalized. Some of you have started already while the paperwork was still in process. So your pay will be like 2 weeks behind, right? So you'll get paid for the next pay period, and then this one pay period will come later. Okay. Okay. The other thing you're supposed to get is 2 monthly Metro cards or the equivalent, and more than likely, what we're going to do with that is send you checks for that, because I know a lot of you don't need a full monthly Metro card. Some of you might, but we'll get more information out about that soon. But I think more than likely what we'll do is send out checks, and then you can purchase what you need right now and you'll get reimbursed. Okay. Okay. The other thing is we had talked about the journal, keeping an internship journal. I would love one. I come to the office 3 times a week. Okay. Okay, great. There is a certain point at which a monthly Metro card is worth it. I don't know if 3 times a week is that, or my HR isn't sorted out yet. Yeah, you will all be paid. It's not sorted out yet. Okay, so your pay will just be 2 weeks behind. That's all. You'll get paid, but it'll be not in the next pay period, but the pay period after that. Okay, the journal, we want you all to keep a journal. Nora's going to be checking those, and it's going to be helpful for all of you. Rachel just spoke about, thinking about your goals and what you're learning and who you're meeting. Will it be double the amount? No, it's not going to be double the amount. It's going to be a week behind. So we're going to go backwards. You'll get paid the 2 weeks that you get paid for. You'll get paid for the 2 weeks in which you are in our system. And then the 2 weeks right now that you're working, in which you are not in the payroll system yet, that you will get at the end. Does that make sense? That you'll get after. So it'll just be a couple weeks behind. You're going to get all your pay. It makes a little sense. Okay, is that what you mean, Ellie? Do people understand that? Okay. Okay. The journal, make sure you keep that. You can keep it on paper. You can keep it on computer. We're going to have a folder where you can submit that once a week. And you can think about, what's most important to you, but it's going to help you think about what you learned, what you accomplished, your goals. I put this all on the guideline sheet, but you want to think about, what did I do? What did I attend a meeting? Did I observe something new? Did I do a project? Did I accomplish something? That's going to be helpful later for your resume. Did you learn something? Did you pick up a concrete skill? Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Did you pick up a soft skill? do you really love what you're doing? Does it relate to your career goals? You know, reflect. It's an opportunity for you to record what you're learning. It can be as long as you want. It can be really short. This is for you. It's something that we want to help you. We want to keep track of it and look at it so that we can learn along with you and also help you navigate things and understand your experiences. But it's very helpful. It's going to help you evaluate things and remember what you accomplished and what you did. And you can, as I said, online, in a notebook, whatever, you know, whatever makes the most sense for you. Also, we would love it if you would take photos at your internships. If you want, not required, but you know, we can profile people, we can share it with JFEW later. We can have a record of what you did. Of course, you want to be careful about this. Don't take photos if you think it may be there's something private. You want to check with your supervisors, but it would be wonderful to have a recording and to be able to profile people at their internships. Can you share the questions and templates for the journal in our group chat? I sent all of that in the program guidelines. You should all have that. I emailed it yesterday. Okay.
I have one question.
What?
So okay, I'm being compensated by JFEW, not my internship, right? Like this is pretty
Right.
specifically.
The people
Okay.
who are being paid by their companies should know it. You know, Anna was just asking something. There are a few of you, but what we can, if you're confused, let us know and we'll be in touch with you directly. Okay. Anyone who has not filled out our paperwork and who we have not been in touch with about the paperwork is getting paid by their employer. I want to take a few minutes so you can, you know, Nora can get to know all of you and she can, you know, just take a moment. But just a quick reminder, wait, I just see, can you share the questions? Yeah, okay. Just a reminder, you're doing this internship through Common Point, through JFEW. So just remember, you know, you're representing yourself. You want to look good and be as successful as you can and just do the best job that you can. You're also representing us. So, you know, be responsible, treat it like a job, show up on time, be your best. That's the same for online and in person, even more online, because people cannot see you and verify that you're there right on time. So you need to sort of even go beyond what's expected. Just take it seriously, you know, and for people who are remote, just, you know, don't make a mistake of being lax because you're at home. And I don't think you would, but I'm just saying that. Any problems or issues, please bring it up to us. Let us know. We're here for you. We're here to help navigate you. We want you to have relationships with your employers, but we also are here for you to help resolve any issues. So if you have any questions or concerns, just tell us, and then we can help you figure out maybe how to handle things. Okay. Okay. We have a little bit of time left. I want to give Nora a few minutes just to say hello and introduce herself and ask you just a couple of questions about you. And go for it, Nora.
Okay. Hi. So I'm Nora. Nice to actually see you all, meet you all. But I figured, yeah, we have a few minutes. So in a fun fashion, I kind of wanted to do like a little, you know, one of those little trends that put a finger down and ask a couple of fun prompts. I think it'll be a nice way to get to know one another and kind of, you know, so whoever's camera is on, it's a nice little way to kind of bond over some mutual little topics. But like Karen wrote you all in the intro email. So I just came from working in CUNY in accessibility. I also work very closely with our Hillel. So both very happy places. I really enjoy working at the College of Staten Island. And that's where I'm based right now and live in Staten Island. So yeah, pretty much just have a lot of little interest in theater, arts and dance and a lot of fun like fashion, photography, that kind of creative. I'm a very creative person. So I always show up wearing something funky or colorful and probably talk your ear off about theater and dance. So that's pretty much my background. But yeah, so if you guys want to have a few of your cameras on, if you're able to, and you can always,
Cameras on, everyone.
yeah.
Unless you're in a really, really difficult spot.
Yeah, if you're driving, please don't do that. That's not
Yeah,
good.
if you're driving. Then no.
Okay, so I'll start from here. So put a finger down if you live in Staten Island, Queens, or Brooklyn. Okay, put a finger down if you speak another language. All right. Put a finger down if you are majoring in STEM related major. Business major? Any sort of major ending in ology, like speech pathology, psychology, biology. Okay. Anything medical? All right. Let's see. Put a finger down if you have a pet. That's really hard to do. Okay, that was 3. Put a finger down if you can't watch scary movies. Put a finger down if you have siblings. Okay, there's a lot of movement. I'm an only child, so that's cool. Let's see. Put a finger down if you have been out of the country before. Okay. Put a finger down if you really like pizza. And yeah, let's do one more. Put a finger down if you are into sports. And put a finger down if you're into more of the creative arts. Cool. It's good to always get a little idea of, who's in our group and everyone's bases. But the next few weeks, I think I'll be probably setting up one-on-ones and probably, hopefully getting to know a couple of you on a more personal basis to get to know, your major, your internship. Also, I'll be checking in and assisting with the journals. So if you have any questions, I'll be looking over it. If you have any other concerns, just reach out. So I'm very excited to get started here and look forward to working with you all.
Thanks, Nora. That's amazing. That's great. So yeah, we were all very excited to have Nora on board. As you all know, we're going to be starting another cohort in the fall. So if anyone actually knows any people who just finished their freshman year, tell them to apply because they would be eligible maybe for the fall semester. So please spread the word. Our next session is July 11th. That's in person. That is at UJA, and that is with the women's professional group at UJA. So it's going to be fantastic. That's an amazing group of women. That's on 59th and Lex. It's the central location since we have people coming from all over the place. Also at 6:30. The last session is on August 3rd. That's with Rachel again, and I would really like to have that one in person also at UJA, but we have to confirm that. And the date is also, we also do need to confirm the date, but more than likely it's August 3rd. So yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything? Tammy, I know you wanted to stay on for a minute. Does anybody have anything they wanted to ask? How are the internships going? I know a few people started. Hands up if you started this week. Great. Okay, a few. So, okay, great. Awesome. I can't wait to hear how that's going. So yeah, get started with your journals because it'll be really interesting for us to read. And it's good. It is really, really good for you too. It's going to be, I mean, that's the main goal. It's good for you and it's going to help you learn and reflect. So, okay. Thank you, everyone. Starting Monday. Awesome. Great. Yeah, good luck, everyone. Thank you, Michael. It's really great to see you. Please be in touch for anything at all, and we'll also be reaching out. And take care and have a good night. And thank you for being here.